did everything they told you. You woke up early, you stayed late, you studied the people who succeeded and you copied their habits down to the hour. You sacrificed the weekends, you turned down the invitations, you sat alone in rooms where nobody watched you and you worked anyway, not because someone was counting, but because you believed that effort had a contract with outcome. You believed somewhere deep and unspoken that if you put in enough, the universe owed you something back. And then it didn't pay. Not this month, not last month, not the month before that. You checked your work, you adjusted, you pushed harder, you read more, you slept less, you told yourself you were close. You told yourself the next attempt would be different. You stood in front of mirrors, rehearsing conviction you weren't sure you still had. And still, nothing. Not failure from laziness, not failure from ignorance, not the kind of failure that comes with an obvious explanation you can fix tomorrow morning. This is the other kind, the kind that arrives when you're doing everything right. And it is the most dangerous place a driven person can stand. Here is what nobody prepares you for. You can execute perfectly and still lose. You can have the discipline, the strategy, the patience, the right mindset, the right mentors, and still watch someone less prepared, less deliberate, less committed walk through the door you've been knocking on for 3 years. That doesn't make logical sense. And the part of your brain that runs on logic starts to crack slowly at first. You explain it away. Bad timing, bad luck, an anomaly. You recalibrate and go again. But the second failure lands differently from the first. It's quieter, heavier. It doesn't shout. It settles into the walls of your confidence like moisture, invisible, structural, dangerous. You start to wonder if the process is broken. Then you wonder if you are. You stop telling people what you're working toward because explaining requires optimism you're rationing. You keep showing up, but the showing up feels mechanical. The fire is still there, or something that looks like fire. But you're no longer sure if you're burning towards something or just burning. People around you offer the standard script. Keep going. Trust the process. Your time is coming. You nod. You say thank you. And inside, something quiet and honest says, you've been trusting the process, and the process keeps handing you nothing. That honest voice isn't a weakness. That honest voice is trying to protect you. It has watched you pour and pour and pour into something that has not filled. It wants you to stop before there's nothing left to pour. But here is where most people make the critical error. They listen to that voice without interrogating it. They let protection become paralysis. They confuse exhaustion with evidence. They confuse a long delay with a permanent denial. They step back from the work, not to rest, not to rebuild, but to disappear. And the disappearing feels like wisdom because they've dressed it in the language of self-preservation. It is not wisdom. It is the moment you are closest to something that feels most like nothing, and the distance between those two things is thinner than you have been led to believe. The ground has not betrayed you. The ground is testing the quality of your roots, testing whether you grew deep enough to hold when the season turned cold and the surface looked dead. You are not dead, but you are being tested at depth. Let's say the quiet, honest thing out loud. You are exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You have carried the weight of sustained hope across too many mornings that looked identical to the one before. Your identity is tangled up in what you're trying to build, and so every time it doesn't work, some small part of you concludes that you don't work. The flaw is not in the plan. The flaw is in the person executing it. That conclusion is wrong, but it is extraordinarily convincing, because you are not failing from the outside, you are failing on the inside, like where the scoreboard is invisible, and the only one keeping score is you. And you have been ruthless with that scoreboard. Every missed target a verdict, every setback a sentence, every slow month a confirmation of something you feared about yourself long before this pursuit began. You are collapsing under something more precise than failure. You are collapsing under the weight of sustained, unexplained, undeserved difficulty. And that is a specific kind of breaking. The kind that happens to people who actually try. The ones who never stop. The ones who deserve better than what this particular chapter has handed them. You deserve better than this chapter. But deserving and receiving are not on the same calendar. The gap between them, that dark, airless space where commitment lives without confirmation, that is where character is manufactured, not announced, not inspired into being by a good speech or a clean metaphor. Manufactured, under pressure, without applause, without evidence, in the place where every rational signal says stop and something wordless in you refuses. That refusal is not stubbornness. That refusal is the most important thing about you. Consider something that disrupts everything you've been told. Success is not linear, you know that. But you've been applying that knowledge incorrectly, as comfort rather than as cartography. You've been using it to feel better about the delay without using it to understand the delay. There is a difference between tolerating the non-linear path and reading it accurately. Every stalled outcome contains information, not consolation, not philosophy, information. The failure that keeps returning in the same place is not a wall. It is a question the situation is asking you. Most people in your position answer it with more volume, more effort, more hours, more pressure applied to the same point. But the question is not about volume. The question is about the angle. You have been hammering at the right door with the wrong tool, not because you're incompetent. Because the tool that got you to this door is not the tool that opens it. What carried you to the threshold will not carry you through. That is not a criticism of what you've built. That is the architecture of growth at this specific altitude. Something in your approach must change, not your commitment, not your target, not your belief in the possibility, but something structural. Something you've been protecting because it has served you, and because changing it feels like admitting something was wrong. Nothing was wrong. The old tool was right for the old door. You are at a different door now. And the reframe is this: you are not failing despite doing everything right. You are failing because you are at the edge of your current capability, and the only way through is to become someone you have not yet been. That is not comfortable. It is not fast. And it does not look from the inside like progress. It looks exactly like this. So here is what you are going to do. Not eventually. Not when you feel ready. Now. You're going to sit down with your process, not your goal, your process. And you are going to interrogate it without mercy, not to destroy it, to diagnose it. You are going to identify the single point in your sequence where the result consistently diverges from the intention, not the whole system, one point. You are going to name it in writing because naming it in your head gives it permission to shift and hide. Then you are going to find someone who has solved exactly that problem, not someone inspirational, not a generalist, someone who has been precisely where you are stuck and navigated it. You are going to reach out to that person this week, not to ask for motivation, to ask for mechanics. What specifically changed, what specifically worked, what you cannot see from your current position, they could see from theirs. You are going to reduce your output and increase your accuracy. This is counterintuitive and necessary. You have been doing too many things adequately. You need to do fewer things with surgical precision. Identify the two actions in your current approach that produce the most traction, even marginal traction, and you are going to double your investment in those two things while temporarily suspending everything else. You are going to stop measuring progress in the same units you've been using because those units have been lying to you. Revenue, followers, contracts, results. Those are lagging indicators they show you last month. You need leading indicators. You need metrics that measure the inputs you control and the number of meaningful conversations, the quality of each attempt, the specificity of each adjustment. And you are going to track those instead for 90 days without referencing the lag. You are going to sleep. Not as a reward. As a performance requirement, you are going to protect your sleep with the same ferocity you protect your ambition, because a fatigued mind executing the right strategy is still producing the wrong result. And you are going to do all of this without requiring it to feel like momentum. The feelings will follow. First the mechanics, then the traction, then the feeling, not before. You have been waiting for the feeling to arrive before you act. That sequence is backwards. Reverse it. Start now. You are in the most important year of your life, not because everything is going well, because everything is not. Because this specific difficulty, this precise, unearned, unresolved pressure is the condition under which your real capability is being formed, not tested, formed. There is a difference. Tests reveal what's already there. Formation builds what wasn't. You have not been stuck in a delay. You have been inside a construction. The person who walks out the other side of this are not the person who gives up, not the person who stays comfortable in sustained mediocrity, but the person who holds through this and adjusts and narrows and goes again. That person is worth something the current version of you cannot yet calculate. So grieve the chapter that should have gone differently. Give it the acknowledgement it deserves. Then close it. Not with resentment. Not with pretending it didn't cost you. Close it with the quiet, unreasonable, almost irrational decision to continue. Not because success is guaranteed, not because the math has changed, but because you are not finished. You never were. You woke up early, you stayed late, and that still means something.